So does that feel like a movie directed by a woman? There are dozens of feminist critiques out there that expound on why only a woman could have directed this film. To me, it's certainly not obvious that a woman is behind the camera, unless you want to note how devoid the story is of the macho heroics you often see in this kind of hostage drama. From the outset, Ida Lupino said she was more interested in making a psychological drama than an action thriller. She wanted to visualize the threat that narcissistic psychopathology, a predominantly male trait, inflicts on a civilized society, and she wanted to examine power dynamics in male relationships, how a crazy man bends other men to his will. Hey, all that stuff is in practically every action movie. But unlike other films of the era, Lupino gives the characters and situations ample time to breathe, as well as some very pointed dialogue. So the issues and ideas percolate right to the surface. In that sense, it may be a viable argument that in 1953, only a woman, specifically this woman, could have directed this film. The only other films of this period that tackle male psychopathology so directly were 1950's In a Lonely Place, written by Dorothy Hughes, and 1952's The Sniper, written by Edna and Edward Anholt. Just thought that was worth mentioning. As I noted at the top, to ensure her film was as psychologically astute as possible, Ida Lupino met with murderer Billy Cook in prison. In 1951, he had been sentenced to 300 years in an Oklahoma prison for the murder of a vacationing family. And only months later, he was extradited to California, where he was convicted of having murdered a traveling salesman. Now, Cook told Lupino that his only goal in life was to live by the gun and roam. And the only explanation he gave for his behavior was, "I hate everybody's guts, and everybody hates mine." Understandably, Ida was terrified of Billy Cook, even behind bars, and she couldn't get out of San Quentin fast enough. On December 12, 1952, Billy Cook was executed in the gas chamber at San Quentin. Now, if you're a hardcore movie fan, then you've seen many of the locations in today's film before. Specifically, you've seen Ida Lupino in these locations. That's because most of The Hitch-Hiker was filmed in the Alabama hills of Lone Pine, California, the setting for 1941's High Sierra, in which Lupino co-starred with Humphrey Bogart. And let's also give Lupino major props as a director for enhancing the film's authenticity by having Mexican characters actually speaking Spanish, not the cartoonish accented English most Hollywood films resorted to. And while I'm tossing around praise, let's make sure Frank Lovejoy gets his share. Usually it's Edmund O'Brien who gets cast as the regular Joe, but here it's Lovejoy who has the least showy but more challenging role. There's a lot going on behind his eyes, and he conveys a stoic wariness that winds up being a believable depiction of heroism under pressure.
As long as he needs us, we'll stay alive. When he gets ready to jump us, we'll jump him, not before. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow.
Lovejoy didn't get many great movie roles, but when he did, like this film or 1951's Try and Get Me, which is coming up in January, he was always believable and often compelling. Well, that'll do it for this show. Now, despite what transpired this week, I want you all packed and ready to meet back here next week because we're going on a fishing trip to Mexico. I promise we won't encounter Wild Bill Tallman, although we will run up against Lee Van Cleef, Neville Brand, and Jack Elam, three of the baddest plug uglies ever. They meet up at a Mexican fishing resort to divvy the loot from a big heist in Kansas City Confidential, also starring John Payne, Colleen Gray, and Preston Foster. It's a humdinger, so we'll see you back here for that. Until then, try to get some shut-eye.